Steele, can you hear me? Hey, Nicole, how are you?
Good. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, that was me.
Okay. Good. How are you?
Good. We'll give it a couple more minutes. You can see my screen, right? Okay.
Yeah, I can see you and hear you fine.
Okay, cool. Nicole, so far it's you and Steele from my office.
Okay.
So,
How's everything going?
good. How are you? Since we saw you on Tuesday.
Not too bad.
What were you? Let me ask you a quick question while we're waiting. What did when you saw this? What did you want to see out of it?
This IT roadmap thing.
Mm-hmm.
I guess just generally to be more in the know.
Yeah.
That's what. Just to know more things about what I should be thinking about for the future.
Yeah. Cool. You have a chance to kind of start differently.
Yeah.
From where you're at with the business side of it. So I'll give it a couple more minutes. It might be this might turn into just a quick conversation for us, since you know who we are a little bit, and we'll kind of dive into, if it's just the people that are on here, we'll dive into kind of the mechanics of this thing.
Okay. Yeah, that's fine. I have a meeting after this with Lance Thompson, who Eric suggested talking to.
His father-in-law?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's cool.
I didn't remember his name, but when I found him on LinkedIn, he looked so familiar. And he said that we met years ago. And I do remember seeing him at networking things a long time ago, but I don't remember really formally sitting down and talking to him.
Yeah, I think he told Eric that he attended one of your presentations. So,
yeah, I think that's probably where we met when I first started, probably.
That's cool. So that's kind of small world. So
yeah.
All right, so here's what I'm going to do, because I don't know if many more people are going to jump on this. So Nicole, this is my first webinar that I'm doing, by the way. So thank you for coming. I appreciate that.
No problem. I can be your guinea pig.
Basically, I'm saying you're going to be my guinea pig right here. And it's funny because the guys have watched me freak out this week for this thing. So I'm going to, if you guys are cool, I'm just going to dig into it. And if people jump on, they jump on. So
yeah,
you're good? Okay. All right.
I'm good.
So
Let's go.
thank you for being here and joining us today. So I appreciate you spending some of your time. I know your time's valuable. This is a pretty cool subject for us because it's a different way of doing IT. So when we get into building like a 1, 3, and 5 year roadmap, we're trying to do things that align with where the company's going and not just, breaking something when it fixed or fixing something when it breaks. So we'll dig into that today. You know who we are. You're in our Vistage group, right? So this is a good chance for me to practice that. But we're an IT managed service provider that's been in Phoenix for over 30 years, supporting companies, here locally and nationally. Our core focus is to help customers understand the impact of IT on their business. Ultimately, what we're trying to do is just help them make the right investments, good investments in IT that not only align with where they're at today, but also where they may be in 3 to 5 years. So we like the word intention here at Blue Fox. We don't want to do anything without good intention. And so what we think of IT with intention is leveraging IT so they have the ability to work smarter, which can lead to lowering your costs, eliminating noise, distractions, increasing margins. And we use protect reputation, right? So being able to make good decisions that can protect your reputation, know that you're protecting your customers' data, your reputation to the public. Those things are all important to us. Who needs an IT roadmap? We see a lot of companies that wish they could spend their budget on areas to help them grow the business rather than replacing out-of-date equipment. So in cases like this, when we ask these questions, a lot of these companies are waiting for something to break before they have to replace it. So we also ask people to say, hey, do you know if you have an unknown risk that will eat your future resource or time, right? Maybe it's a security issue. Maybe it's a ticking time bomb out there that could go at any point in time. Do you feel like you're trying to find a quick technology fix to solve an immediate problem rather than a longer term solution? And that could be in a lot of different areas with security. It could be cameras, could be computers, could be whatever you're trying to look at there. Another question I'd like to add on here is, are you making decisions based on price because you're trying to save the company money and you feel that's the right thing to do, but it might not align with an overall strategy? So, and I'm kind of talking to you, Nikki, but in general, we see a lot of this where companies, quite honestly, when we work with like in-house IT people, they're just trying to save them money by getting the cheapest thing, but it really has no sense of purpose or alignment with where the company's heading.
Yeah,
so
I can see that.
It happens all the time. And so, this is an interesting slide here because it too. Oftentimes we're managing from gray areas. And when people don't have a good plan, we know that business is not, black or white. And so if they don't have a good plan or process, what are they managing to so they can navigate this area? And basically what we're trying to do is to say, hey, listen, we've got to get in there and develop these plans and processes so when you're in the gray, you know how to navigate through it. What we like to say is it's not an IT conversation. When you're building an IT roadmap, it's a business conversation. It's something where, for us, we look at IT to support the business, not that the business supports IT in that sense. This is a scenario where technical pain, technical risk, those things that come up or those problems equal business problems. And what we need to do is be able to understand what those risks are, what those problems are, so that we can actually tie it to a business decision and how that's going to impact the business. And so it's less about the actual technical pain in the moment, but how we can look at, okay, how is this going to solve where I need to go? What's the cost? What's the impact on me? How could it affect my reputation for my clients, other people, if I don't get something like this solved? And not just, hey, we need to fix a server because it's broken. So to us, we try to approach it from a business sense to say, okay, what does this mean if we don't take care of the solution at this point? We do know that as we move forward, small businesses have different technology needs and they've changed. You see it, we talked about it the other day, just the complexity. surrounding security, compliance issues, how we're accessing applications. Just in general, those big enterprise problems have now come down to the small business world. And it's something that those people are concerned with, and they're trying to figure out how to leverage technology, how not to have a bunch of different stuff, but how to make it work together. So this is where we come up with our plan, the way we do things at Blue Fox on how we try to help advise our clients. And it starts with building an IT roadmap. And as we get into a roadmap, the most important thing you can do, it's almost like building a foundation on the house, but it's creating a standards and a checklist, like knowing what are the industry standards and best practices that I should be measuring my current environment to. So I know where I need to get to, but I also know where I'm starting. And then from that standpoint, repeatedly measure against it over time so you know how your environment's improving. So the toughest thing for people to do is they don't have best practices. They don't know how to identify standards. They don't know how to evaluate, or identify the types of risks that might give them problems. And ultimately, if they start to figure these things out, they can start to eliminate reactive issues and start to stabilize an environment to make things work better. So how do we do some of that stuff? What we do is we have what's called a tool that allows us to actually track all of our standards. And then we're able to build what's called a technology summary. So, in a typical environment, there's some simple things on here like backup, disaster recovery, internet access. Here's my servers, power, air conditioning, workstations. It's really just a quick glimpse at what it is. But we have all these parts, pieces, and services built into a tool that tells us, okay, hey, listen, when's the last time this was backed up? Has it failed? When's the last time? How old is your server? What's the memory on it? What's the usage on it? What's the capacity on it? How old are the workstations? Even down to, hey, does your IT room have air conditioning in it? Is it locked? And so we create all these standards and we start to go back and figure out where the customer is at from that standpoint and measure against it. And so what you can see here is a simple traffic light, which is red for not good, yellow means it's a warning, we should look at it, and green means we're good. Ultimately, what we do from here is start to prioritize the issues or the things that we see that are important. So we'll identify them first, then we'll prioritize them. And then we'll say, okay, hey, out of these, what things do I need to take care of? And maybe I need to do it now because it's a critical issue and the risk presents something that, is higher than I'd like to see, or it's a risk that can be delayed till next year and I can start to build a budget and a timeline to actually fix that issue. So the point of what we're trying to do is actually figure out where our customers are so we can help them get to where they want to get, measure that against industry best practices and standards, and then allow them to actually prioritize what are the most important risks first that could impact my business and, financially, time-wise, whatever it is. So this kind of sums that up again, but it's summarizing where our technology is today, where it needs to be to help you measure and uphold, establish standards to meet business needs and drive the business forward. Ultimately, when we can start to do that, it starts to drive down the cost for reactive support. And, obviously documenting, it's having a solid process there to make sure we've got everything we need. How we do this at Blue Fox is in a few different ways. The way our service is set up is we have a reactive support desk that takes inbound support requests that are non-scheduled projects that would be separate. We have a centralized service team that monitors servers, backups, updates, patches, doing things in the background. Then we have a dedicated technology alignment specialist. And these three people feed information into what we call as our virtual CIO. And so it's a combination of looking at, tickets that are coming into our help desk. It's a combination of looking at the looking at the technology summary. It's a combination of, looking at the things and challenges we know on the back end from our centralized service team, but also aligning them with the customer where they can go on site and they can start to possibly predict where the customer is going, or meet with the customer and understand where they're evolving as a business. So we can also align that with any technology decisions that we make. We're also going on site from that same standpoint to go and make sure that, hey, you know what, the customer didn't plug a switch in because they needed an extra port to add a printer or a point of sale machine. Little things like that we're making sure the environment hasn't changed. At the same time, we're trying to understand, hey, you know, if an issue is happening and they're calling for password resets all the time, why are they doing that? Are there tools, are there things we can implement into the business so that they're not having the interruptions that they have, and we can actually give them their time back in their day to perform their job properly? So once we get this information into our technology summary, our VCIOs generally will meet with the team, the business team, the executive team, whoever it is, the IT directors, and actually take these issues to drive them down to make them simple so they can start to make what look like tough decisions, easy decisions that align with where they're going, and make those same recommendations on reducing complexity. So the point is what we're trying to do is to better manage outcomes. So managing from the gray, focus on how business operates, focus on the time to value and desired outcomes. We're trying to manage the standards. That's the biggest thing that's huge. You know, I'll give you an example is when you're not managing to a standard for us would be if a server is 5 years old or just at or a little bit over 5 years old, it should be replaced. We should know that once we've documented, once we looked at the environment, and we should build a budget in 5 years to replace that server. And you should ask it, you should replace it, even if it's working okay. And an example of that would be is we had a client where we discussed replacing the server a year ago. We gave them options and analyzed moving to the cloud or keeping that server. They have a standard, their best practices to allow things to run until it's going to break. And they've been down multiple times this year. That's cost them more money, more time, more frustration. And what they really should have done is replaced it last year. And so when you manage the standards, you can start to proactively take care of these challenges before they exist, not to have any type of fire drills. And you move the business forward. It's like just keeping maintenance up on your car from that standpoint, and being able to, really manage an environment and think of this differently so you have your time and your day back. That actually, will make you more money and be a better investment for you over time. So what we would typically do in these situations is work with clients to just do a technology appraisal, figure out, do they even have standards in place? Do they have best practices in place? Do they know where to start, right? Do they have tools to actually measure that? Most companies don't have tools or programs to go in and say, okay, hey, here's all the questions I should be asking about my environment. Here's where I'm at in my environment. Where am I off? Where do I need to gain alignment? What are those big priorities that could really impact the business if I don't take care of this? Is it easy for me to explain that to a CEO, CFO, to let them know so they can make a good business decision and a quick one, right? And then how do I build that roadmap out long term to say, okay, here's all the boxes I need to check, and some of those might be lower priorities that need to be taken and figured out in year 3 or 5. Or what equipment do I need to replace down the road? And I've built out that budget for it. So when it comes up, there's no questions asked. So it really gives a detailed map of where you're going. We like to say, build the plan, work the plan. And that's exactly what you do. When you can do that, you can be super efficient. So what we don't do at Blue Fox, we threw this in here at the end, is we give advice without a strategy. We don't sell reactive support. We're not an IT shop that comes in and talks about how great our reactive support is and you should use us. We're going to answer the phone fast, call us as much as you like. If you are calling us a ton, there is a problem. We have not done our job. And the point is for us to invest those resources on the back end so that we're avoiding issues. We're thinking through problems. Why do these problems happen? How could we avoid that? Why are they calling so much for password resets? Can we put in a tool to manage their identity to make it easy? Can we give our customers their time back so that they can be more profitable in their business. We know for our business, reactive support is the most expensive thing we have because you have to have people sitting around waiting for things to break. We don't want to do that. We want to get there before it and make sure that you're streamlined moving forward so that those things aren't breaking.
Right.
What we do is we help you to define business outcomes. We act as consultants. Goals to reduce IT costs, eliminate risk, improve how technology enables you to prioritize higher value tasks. And, this is my favorite one. We help people move away from a transactional mindset to a transformational decision-making mindset. And, maybe it's not just replacing a server. Maybe it's, hey, COVID hit us, and now we figured out that we can actually function as a business with half the people in the office, half the people remote. Is there a better way? Should we leverage cloud technology? Should we get rid of, VPNs and all these other measures we have to build to secure desktop, put everything in the cloud, build out a better security practice around that cloud, how we manage people, how they have access to us. And those are the type of things that we try to compare to say, wow, this could transform the way I'm working. Can we tie in phones to that? Can we tie in collaboration? Can I use one application on the desktop to access everything, including video and collaboration? So that's the difference from where we're trying to head with a lot of our clients. And the only way you can do that is if you start to understand where they're at today, where those standards are, where they're going, what products may need to be replaced, or services or challenges they have that could be encompassed into a transformational solution. So that's what we are trying to accomplish today. Questions for anyone? I see Eric joined. Eric, how are you doing? I might have him on mute.
Hi, I'm doing okay, thanks.
Yeah, you gotta. I know you guys on here pretty well. So we've got a big cast of about 3 people on here today. So you got to witness kind of our fun dry run here.
Oh, okay. Well, hey, I'm a pleasure to be one of the first 3 then.
Yeah. Thanks. Anyway, Nicole, I know, do you have any questions on there? Generally what we're trying to do is go ahead.
Yeah, so, I do have a quick question for like the 1-year roadmap. What do you guys do like in that first year if you're not acting reactively? So is that just like kind of analyzing the business and what they need?
Correct. Yeah. And trying to fill in the blanks, like, maybe it's as simple as what's standardizing on antivirus, like implementing security policies, like you're figuring out, like maybe you have a ticking time bomb somewhere, like it was compliance with you, right?
Okay,
and you're trying to, and so what ends up happening here is with our technology summary is it assigns almost like a risk score to it. And every business is different. Certain risks may not be important to you as it is to, a financial firm or someone else, right? And so the point of having that guide is to be able to actually sit down and say, okay, is this a big deal, right? Is this important? Is this not important? And then you're able to start prioritizing tasks. I think when you're getting into the 3 and 5 year, you're looking at, replacements for equipment. Maybe I have a strategy to move to the cloud. I have to figure out, how certain pieces of data may work with that. Maybe you're moving certain parts to the cloud. So, there's a lot of tech that goes into a cake, right? Like to make ingredients is the word I'm looking for. And so it's really helping you guys get prioritized and on your mindset and understand, okay, how is this a business risk? Oh, maybe this is something I didn't think about before. That's actually a really big deal to me. Maybe that's something I need to check the box on. And it's a clear picture of complex environments, right? And how to navigate those decisions. And so, in generally you want to be proactive about these things because if you're waiting for something to fail, it's a problem. And it's always going to be worse.
And then when you do your initial assessment, do you look at all the computers of the employees? Like, what if one employee just isn't doing what the policies are and they're not using the firewall or whatever. Like, do you find those issues too?
Yeah, all the time, right? And that's where you start to create your standard, right? So what's the Nicole standard, right? Is that acceptable or is it not, right?
Okay.
And we would talk from that standpoint. It's probably a security risk, right? If you're not managing that device, it is from that standpoint, not probably, but that's where you have to define, okay, hey, these users that are coming in my environment that are bringing their own device, well, that device, if it touches my network, needs to be managed in some capacity, right? So is that a standardization of these guys need, my cocktail of security services built into it if they're going to access my network, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or anything, that might be related to it. So, but that's what you have to do. Those are the decisions that you got to start making, and people just, there's just a lot going on, and I know more experienced directors, like some of the guys like Eric on the call. I mean, that's Eric, I'm sure that's the type of stuff you're asking and you're doing with your team too. Is that a fair statement?
Yes. Yeah, it is. Unfortunately, we're in the realm of, we have a sophisticated custom environment, but our IT force is shrinking. So that's when I'm looking for solutions like yours from vendors to help complement mine. Sometimes it comes into, I'm looking for a specialist. Sometimes I'm looking into someone to give best practice advice, because I can't be everywhere, so.
Yeah, I was like the one, like when we get into some companies, we'll look at, I'll use this example, that we'll do some ticket analysis to see why people are calling in and what they're calling in for. And if you think about, so many people have so many different passwords and different applications they're accessing in the cloud. And so, a simple one that we saw, one group, it was a fairly large group, they were probably getting 100 password resets a month, however that equated down. And you look at the amount of time that costs and just the bodies that you might have to have sitting there waiting to take those requests. And, if you're starting to actually, you have the people that are paying attention to that. That's what the difference between a lot of reactive support companies is. They're not taking the time to analyze, like, what's going on? Why is that happening? This is expensive. It's costing their employees a ton of time to keep calling in. Every time there's an interruption, we know it equates to a 28% loss in productivity in our day. So can we put a tool in there? A simple one would be like one login, or, people know LastPass, just, some kind of password management system that actually manages all their passwords and applications in there that would allow them to maybe reset one password on their own in a very simple way, instead of calling in, putting in a ticket, depending how fast you can get to them. So for us, it's trying to figure out, like, it's business. It's business. How do we drive down costs? How do we, give people back their time? And it's a business for us on this back end too, that it's like, hey, if we can think through these solutions, we're ultimately going to be more productive as a company ourselves. So I think that's a different way of looking at things than a lot of groups do.
Yeah.
But you can't do it unless you know where you're at, and you have the tools to go in there and actually, for Eric's comment, if they're kind of looking for additional resources, how can they be more productive, more efficient, with their own team, if they have that internally? I happen to know he does, like, so he can manage his guys' time the best, right? But maybe he's able to make some investments in some tools or some process or some other things, or have, higher priority targets that he knows he needs to hit, and stretch out the smaller ones over time until, things change. So, and that's what's having a good a tool. That's what's having a good back end analysis of the data you have and the issues that could be coming. So, and it just takes time. You got to document it. You got to get stuff on the network. You got to figure out what processes are there. Our tool's got about 1,000 questions in it that we dumbed down, and we've cut out some things that are the most critical for our companies that we measure against. Any other questions?
I think that answered mine for now. I might have some later, but I can just email them to you.
Yeah, I'll see you next week. So
yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah.
Eric, anything I can go back and answer for you while I have you here?
Yeah, sorry I got in 15 minutes late there, but I was trying to, you know how it is, you're trying to squeeze meetings in, you know what I mean? And
Yeah.
I had a meeting right before this one that obviously went a little bit long. So I know there is something I was going to talk to you about, but I was probably just going to call you privately on it.
Yeah, that works.
But beyond that, I'm interested just kind of what you were discussing with that. In terms of, because planning, my problem with the IT budgets is in the past, when your environment is stable, it's easier to create a budget. The problem is when your environment changes dramatically, where I'm at this year.
Yeah.
From yards selling, yards closing, they could be a joint venture, and that really throws your budget all to heck. And that's where it really gets challenging. Because once you submit a budget, you submitted them with certain goals in mind, and then on top of that, you get an executive team change. So then your mission changes on top of all your budgetary changes. And then they come back to you and say, hey, we need you to cut money. And they want you to start looking, and that I can do. There's always places that we all know there's things you can trim. You might not want to, but we all know there's a couple things you could sacrifice as your lamb if you really got your back against a wall. But sometimes
you just explained reality, just uncertainty, change, all those different things, right? And that's gray to me. That's a gray area. We had a guy, really successful guy here, where we kind of stole this from him, is he told his CPA gives him black and white answers. And he said, I don't want black and white answers. He goes, I live in the gray and I need someone to help me manage the gray. Right. And that's kind of an unclear, uncertain area. Right. And, that's why I think the data comes in for, the people to make the right decisions as you start to prioritize these issues of what you can cut and what you can't cut and what can wait, and you may, in that case, you got to bend a rule or two. Right. But at that point, everyone's on the same page if something does happen.
Yep. Sure.
So, but, from a budget standpoint, part of one of the tools that we have in here as we start to do these reviews is it actually is, once we figure out what those priorities are, we assign those costs to them and we start to put them in quarters, months, whatever it is, when those opportunities should come up, when the budget's available. And, in some cases like that, if it's not there, you just move it out. And so it gives us that kind of real time look of where we're at, where we can move it to, and it just keeps it organized for us. So that's generally where we're helping people. And we know that those things change. So it's tough.
Yeah. The one main budget that I know I got coming forward, at least a quote, is we might possibly be moving our data center to the cloud at the end of this year. It would either be the end of this year or probably be in another approximate 2 years. And there's two reasons. There's contracts around those two dates, and that's why those two dates are important. It'd be more expensive to move now, cheaper to move later, but they would just want to see kind of where we're at. That's where one point might come in where I get into the questions is you're trying to assume what your charges are going to be with whoever your host is, Azure to AWS that's where it gets a little more complex. When it's on-prem, you know what your hardware costs are, what your maintenance costs are. But once you go to the cloud, you're making assumptions. And what I'm using is percentages, like what I'm assuming the growth will be, what I'm assuming the company's going to use in the future. But that's the best that I've been able to find is just get your best assumption because I have nothing to compare it against. Yeah,
that's probably an offline conversation, but we're able to normalize that a little bit more for you. Right. Once we understand the data of what you're looking at, like if you have those metrics, we have a tool that gives us more flexibility to manage that unknown and more fixed cost on there. Right. And so we should probably talk more offline about that on how we're doing that because we're big Azure fans. Everything we have is in Azure. Honestly, if we could start out and just put everyone in the cloud moving forward, That's the way we would do it. So, but
Hey,
I know
Mike,
what you mean on there because
I gotta get going.
Go ahead.
Sorry,
Yeah,
I gotta get
thanks,
going.
Nicole.
I'll let you go. Thank you.
Yeah, take care. So, we can talk more about that. I know hey, Kevin, I don't know if you have any questions. I know we've been kind of talking. It's a little bit more intimate of a webinar, so. You may not.
Yeah, I'm a cloud student, if you will. I work for my family's business, and I run my own business on the side doing virtual tours. But you said that you prefer Azure over AWS, and I prefer AWS over Google Cloud. But if you don't mind me asking, what do you prefer about Azure over AWS?
It's for us, like when I talk about more of a transformational solution, there's so much more we can bundle into that. We just had a group in here the other day that very successful gentleman, sold his business, 175 people, built it up on Wall Street, financial. He was in the financial business, and it cost him $30 million to build out his data center, right? The way he had to do things before. And we said, look, we're going to do it for, $2,000 a month now. And the reality is for us is the way we look at Azure is we look at it as a solution he's got employees all over the United States. In fact, we didn't have to get them full in there. We could accomplish most of the stuff with SharePoint and OneDrive, but we can also use the tool to collaborate, video conference, whiteboard. We can bring in dial tone to Teams, to Microsoft Teams. So we can use this as a single solution for him. And the funny thing is he was getting Class A office space and he canceled it. And he said, I don't need it with what we have and what we can do with Azure. So the tech outsold the office space, which was crazy, right? It's the first time I've seen that. But it just gives us a single solution to manage, and then we can bake our security practices around it, right? Like we know when we go to the cloud, the lady that was just on does a lot of governmental work. You can check a lot of compliance boxes in there. You can check the backups in there. And then we get to a point to say, okay, how do we want to manage more security around that? Now we're managing it down to the device from that sense. And we're building our security suite around the device. We're building our identity management. We're covering the email. We're doing some additional, software backups. So it's something that we're good at and we're comfortable with. AWS is, I think for us, is we see a lot of development going on in there. But it's just a preference, on how we like to work. And honestly, you see more of that on more small business, right? Teams is on the desktop. Everyone's using Office 365. And the cool thing what Microsoft does is they allowed you to build into it. So.
What do you recommend for someone who's looking to learn more about just cloud space in general to work in an IT field similar to what you guys offer? Which one do you prefer learning more out? Do you prefer would you recommend getting an AWS certification or more going towards Azure? Where would you recommend?
I guess it really depends on what you're trying to accomplish. If you're looking to be in IT support with a lot of MSPs like us, you're probably going to see more Azure. But it just depends, right? Because most businesses, like I said, have a lot of Microsoft's already in the office, right? And the guys I've generally seen in AWS is it's more development, it's more some other things, but that doesn't mean it's the right answer. You probably have to figure out where you're going. But I'd be happy to talk to you offline and or have you come in at some point and talk to us. So, and I'll bring my partners in. I'm not the most technical guy in the office. That's why they put us on webinars. So
you're all good. I'm an oddball myself. I'll ask afterwards as well.
Yeah, no problem. So, well, guys, is there any more questions on here? I don't want to keep you on here too long.
Is the info@bfoxg.com the best way to get in contact with you guys?
Yeah, you can just actually, if you get a pen, you can go Mike, MIKE, @bfoxg.com.
All right, thank you, man.
Cool. Thank you. All right. If there's nothing else, guys, I appreciate your time. Eric, do you want me to hit you up offline?
Yeah, we can talk briefly. Yeah, just call my cell phone if you don't mind.
Okay, cool.
Okay, thanks.
Thanks, guys. I appreciate it. Okay, bye. Awkward at first. That was a little awkward at first, dude. Like one person out there, you know, and I totally got off track. You know? Yeah. A little bit awkward. A little bit. No. Everything, you know.
Towards the end, it sounded better.
Oh, yeah, the beginning was a little.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but
Yeah.
I mean, the more you talk about it, the better you get.